Okay, so welcome everyone again. Also welcome to everyone who is listening to this on SoundCloud. Today's topic of this talk is forgiveness. I had a friend of mine asking me about forgiveness. It's a very tragic problem with his own friend who was murdered in the past. And so he is currently trying to forgive the murderer of his very good friend. It's a pretty tough story. I think most of us don't really have these kind of tough stories in their lives, and if you do, then and still try to find forgiveness even in this kind of very harsh circumstances, very difficult kind of past story, then that's quite admirable. So forgiveness always arises as a result of understanding something or someone. And the ability to understand another person properly always depends on having self-awareness or mindfulness. And so you're having an ability to actually really understand yourself, to understand in particular how the mind works, how the mind functions. And so the first kind of step in order to come to a stage where we can forgive, we have to learn that the mind works in a very specific way within ourselves. So we need to train ourselves to look at the way our mind works, at the way our mind behaves. And so what is the mind? Many people ask, what is the mind also? We're talking a lot about the mind all the time, but it seems to be not very clearly defined, something kind of nebulous, ominous out there, what really is the mind? So basically you can say the mind in its essence, in its core, is that which is clear and knowing, that which is knowing phenomena. Consciousness, you can say, or awareness, you can say, make it a little bit more practical and simple, not juggle too much with words like scholars like to do. I think it's good enough to just really know that the mind is something that observes the world, or the mind is that very phenomenon to which everything else appears. You can say the mind is that to which a body appears. The mind is that to which sound, sight, smell, taste, touch, and all these kind of things are appearing. The mind is also that to which thoughts are appearing in its essence. The mind, however, is also that phenomenon when it is conditioned, the conditioned mind, which is giving rise to thoughts, giving rise to inner images, giving rise to motivation, giving rise to moods, and emotions and so forth. That is also the mind. So you can basically only know the mind by what it produces. So let's say, for example, there are thoughts. Since there are thoughts, you can know that there is the mind that is present producing thought, like that. And I think it's good enough for this purpose now. No need to go too much into detail. So that mind can be seen, it can be understood. And when you train your mindfulness, then you train it first of all to rest with your body. It's pretty simple and it's straightforward. It's not too difficult. So we want to train the mindfulness simply to stay with the body for a while, to stay within the present moment for a while. Simply notice that there are various things arising in the world of senses. Like, let's say there is sounds, there's feelings, there's smells, taste, like this. And then train your mindfulness to kind of stay within that present space for a little while, like we did just now with the guided meditation. Just to be able to have a mindfulness you can actually use. At the moment, our mind is very wobbly, you can say. So it goes from thing to thing and it gets lost in itself very easily. So it's important to kind of train it at first to be able to see, to have like a viewpoint, an inner viewpoint from which you have a view. You can see clearly, that's the way the body is, or that's the way the present moment is, that's the way that sounds are. And later on, we can then bring it and look with our mindfulness at the mind itself, at the conditioned mind itself, first of all. So we notice that there is thinking also. Thinking arises and it passes. There are emotions also. Emotions arise and pass. And if your mindfulness is nicely centered, then you can see that the emotion arises and passes, but the observer is still here. That's a big step in your practice. You see that the emotion comes and goes, but you are still here. You, the one who is watching the emotion, is still here. That's the kind of insight that you want at first, more and more. You see that thoughts are coming and going, but you, the one who is watching them come and go, is still here. Okay? So at the beginning we do that with the body because it's simple. Hand gestures are coming and going, and I'm still here and I'm observing all that movement in the body. The body is standing, walking, sitting, lying down, and I'm here at all times watching it stand, sit, lie down, walk. And then you can apply that to the mind itself, to the conditioned mind. Our thoughts are coming and going, feelings and emotions are coming and going, opinions are coming and going, motivations are coming and going, intention is coming and going. And you can stay here and watch and see clearly that all these internal events are coming and going too, just like the external events. Just like a river, just like the wind, just like clouds, just like seasons, millennia, centuries, war and peace. All these things are coming and going continuously on this world since ever. Conflict and relaxation, harmony and friction, always coming, going, coming, going. So you want to come to a point where you are able, where your mindfulness is stable enough to see that clearly within yourself. Now, why is that important for forgiveness? Because when you are able to sit calmly with yourself and look at the chaos that the mind is in, if it is still untrained, the various emotions that come up, how life blows you now here, now there. When you can observe that clearly, you can actually start to understand, like, wow, it's like this. This is my inner world, and if I have no mindfulness, I am forced to act it out without any choice. Basically, you can say that if you have no mindfulness, then you are stripped of choice. You have no choice. You're automatically simply reacting to life. Let's say someone is yelling at you and there is no mindfulness, you yell back. And you don't even know that you're yelling back, it just happens. Or you feel angry and depressed and whatnot. You feel all of that automatically if there is no mindfulness. It just kind of, the mind is bossing you around. It tells you how to feel, how to think. So that's the way it is for all of us. And now we come into understanding everybody in this world is in that situation. We are governed and ruled by a conditioned mind. For those who have no mindfulness, this means that if there is anger, they have to act it out. They have no choice. And they become the anger. They don't see it. I said it before, right? You can, if you have mindfulness and you are kind of stable a stable center within yourself, then you can see that there is anger, and it comes and it also goes, and it's just a condition in the mind. It's like if a certain button is pushed, the machine runs for a little while and then it stops again, like that. That's the case if you have mindfulness, you can see that. But if you have no mindfulness, then it's more like anger comes, and without knowing it, it sweeps you off your feet and it just pulls you with it. And it's a very rugged path, very unpleasant. You hop onto the angry train, if you can say, then it brings you to angry spots, angry places, angry stations, with angry people and a nasty world in general. It's kind of a hell ride. If you hop onto the gratitude train, then it's rather more pleasant, right? So here I recommend to learn to observe that hopping onto the trains is not the only kind of solution. But there is something else too. There's a possibility to see the train come and go without hopping onto it, without going to destinations. But again, now contemplate, this is something that we do not have any control over if we have no mindfulness. Then it's kind of, you're just pulled into trains randomly. If people around you, they are kind of a happy bunch, then you become a happy person. If people around you are more negative and depressed, then you become a depressed and negative person over time. Colors off. The mind, in a way, is a bit like a diamond, you know. It's said in Tibetan Buddhism very often that the mind is like a diamond. If you place it on a red cloth, then it reflects the red color of the cloth. And if you put it on a yellow cloth, it reflects the yellow color of the cloth. So the mind looks yellow, or it looks red. But in its essence, actually, the mind is clear. It is like open, clear space. But we are all colored, we can say, by our upbringing, for example, by past lives. If you want to go that far, you want to say, okay, so the mind is colored by our past lives. If you don't accept past lives, if you're one of those listeners that say, no, I don't accept past lives, that's fine too. But then it is colored in this life. The way your mind is shaped and formed by your parents, your upbringing, the culture you're coming from. It shapes a certain type of personality. There's some people have a very happy upbringing, it's very nice. Some people have very, very bad upbringing, and lots of trouble, lots of problems in their families and so forth. So then they end up with a conditioning that is rather depressive or anxious or fearful or whatever. It's an upbringing that is shaping. But not only upbringing, it is also, it is also the media you consume regularly, the people you're surrounded by. Sometimes we're surrounded by just really toxic people. And there seems to be something within ourselves that is sort of seeking that. That sort of likes to get involved with toxic people. It's that toxic inner aspect of ourselves that seeks to find something that resonates with it. Right? So then we kind of encounter the same stuff over and over again in our lives, even though we don't want to. And then this is all due to the conditioning of our mind. Again, we have no mindfulness, we cannot change. We have no choice. We are kind of bound to live through old stuff again and again and again and again. It will repeat. The past will repeat. You can say even someone without mindfulness is a slave of the past. They're bound to repeat their old patterns and get the same kind of thing again and again. Now, if you're looking at your mind, you get to understand it a little bit deeper, a little bit more, then you will notice also that the thoughts that we are having are continuously the same kind of thoughts, thought topics, thought complexes, same kind of stuff. Maybe some different words every now and then, but it's basically about the same kind of thing all day long. It's important to see that because, again, why is that important for forgiveness? Because we're all like that. Everybody is like that. Totally ruled by their minds, and they're totally at the will of their mind. Now, if their mind suddenly turns negative, they're forced to live that out. It's almost like they are possessed by a demon. Let's say, or sometimes people in Thailand, they're very scared to be like that there are ghosts or that they are possessed by demons or something, and they don't want to go near to the graveyards or something like that because of that fear. But really, the real dangerous ghosts and spirits, they are not afraid of them. Like anger, for example, it just comes into you, and then it acts through you. It actually possesses you. It possesses your whole being, and it acts through you. And if you have no mindfulness, you become that demon for a little while. You take rebirth in that angry space. And it's very unpleasant for everybody, right? And so if we contemplate like this, and contemplate it, see it in yourself, see it when you are angry, see it when you are hurt, see it when there's pain. It's all that stuff that creates all the negativity in this world, creates all the trouble. It's right there in your own heart. Every single aspect, there is hell and there's heaven. It's both in your mind. And it's important to see that because it's there for all of us. A perfectly good person can turn into the worst killer if just the right circumstances come together. Like it's a very nice guy, family guy, and all of a sudden, life takes a turn down. He loses all of his money, he loses his wife, his children are taken from him. He starts drinking. He meets that friend that says, come on, let's have a drink over it. And it kind of is a downward spiral, and it goes down more and more and more. And all the sleeping potential of darkness becomes more and more awake. And that sleeping potential of darkness is within all of us. We all carry darkness and light abundantly. For most of us right now in this moment, as you're listening to this talk, we could say that the darkness is mostly asleep. But if I would start to offend you and call you names, and then quickly it wakes up, doesn't it? Yeah, you need to just push the right button. That's all it takes. And for some people, you see, all the right buttons have been pushed, they turn into killers. All due to the fact that there is no mindfulness, there is no self-knowing. And how could it be there if we grow up in an environment where this is not encouraged? In our schools, we don't learn to love. We don't learn the most important things. We learn about sexuality, but not about love. We learn about numbers, but not how to kindly use them. We learn all about words, but not how to compassionately apply them in daily life. So the most important thing lacks in our education. We're basically filled with tools, but the user of the toolbox is totally neglected. The one who uses those tools is totally neglected in our educational systems. It's a truth that I find quite unbearable, but it seems to be slowly changing. So more and more schools bring meditation into their curricula, and more and more seems to become an important factor in our modern education. So there are changes, and that's great. It's so necessary. It all starts with the education. It all starts with the teacher that can act as an example. A loving and kind person, not a burned out and stressed guy that hates his job. What example does it set for the children? So all these kind of things, they shape a being. And if we can understand that and see that within ourselves, and then more importantly, if we are able to let go of our own pain, that is forgiveness. So we need to start with ourselves. Simple exercise. Have a look. Where are you busy hurting yourself unnecessarily? If there is any such thing as necessarily hurting yourself. But how do you spend your day internally? How many times are you going around judging others? Is that pleasant or is that painful actually? Does it come from pain or does it come from love? Does it come from fear, comparing yourself to others, or does it come from love? You know, all these kind of things, all these are little examples of how we hurt ourselves continuously. We say there are such things as righteous anger, and we feel often very righteous in our anger, but it's actually pretty stupid. We're holding on to something that is so toxic and painful as if it was important. There's nothing important about it. It's just pain. That's all it is. Anger is just that. It is just pain. What's so important holding on to that? Who benefits from it? Ask yourself. How many times are you busy contemplating things that are actually unpleasant? Put yourself into a negative state of mind. You're hurting yourself. You're creating pain for yourself. Can you forgive yourself for doing that? Because now mindfulness slowly comes in and we notice, wow, I've been doing that unconsciously for so many years. I've been hurting myself. And I've been perpetuating internal pain through my words, my behavior, my actions. Now it is time to stop. That is forgiveness. It's time to stop hurting myself. It's time to make friends with myself, to get to know myself from a different viewpoint, a different angle. That's how forgiveness arises, for yourself. But you see, that's why it's so important. We need to really get to know each other, get to know ourselves. If we get to know ourselves, then we will actually be able to see how and where and when we are causing pain to ourselves. And we can let go. And each time you let go of inflicting pain on yourself through repeating old unconscious habit patterns, that's an act of forgiveness. That's an act of friendship, of being done with the past, of moving on towards something that's better. So the more you can forgive yourself, the more you become a friend to yourself, the more you come into a space where it will be easier to make friends with other people. Because your own friendliness will start to resonate with the friendliness of others. Naturally, that's the good news. You don't have to kind of run around and make friends. You don't have to run around and say to everyone, I forgive you, I forgive you. But it naturally radiates out of your being. People naturally feel like, I can relax around that person like that. I can just be myself. I don't have to be scared to be myself. And so this is this inner space of forgiveness that grows. It comes from forgiving yourself, making friends with yourself, and that all is dependent on knowing yourself properly, understanding how you work. Then seeing that, look, the way I work is just motivated by two wishes. I want to be happy and I don't want to suffer. And so everybody else is moved by these two wishes too. All of us in the room here, everyone who listens on SoundCloud now, you're all moved by the wish for more happiness and comfort and joy. You're also all moved by the wish to let go of suffering, to get out of stress. That is something that is uniting. It's something that kind of creates connection, doesn't it? It doesn't create this division. Makes it very simple. I like that. It should be practical. Like any religion should be very practical. Something you can apply right now, right here. That is not dependent on culture, belief, tradition, but something that is asking that question, is there pain in my heart right now? How can I let it go? Because you share yourself with this world. We all do. So how can I let go of my own pain right now? That is an act of forgiveness. Holding on to the pain, for example, of my friend who was asking here for, he had this story of his friend being murdered. Then there is pain, and that is most probably also the motivation why he wants to seek forgiveness, because that pain is something that is quite unbearable. Now, maybe the trick is not to forgive the guy that killed yet, but to forgive yourself first for holding on to this pain continuously. Then train the mind to see the goodness in yourself, that which is worthy of celebrating and making friends with. Then gradually we become more and more able to see this kind of goodness within everyone, that fundamental goodness. If you see your mind in silence, you will have an easier time to make friends with people, because you can see that fundamentally everybody is wonderful. It's just that conditioning very often clouds that light. We're overcast. The beings are overcast. There's too much stuff going on. But fundamentally, everybody is brilliant, beautiful, and good. It's a perversion of the way we are conditioned in this world to think that this is not the case. He's a criminal, she's a fraud, he's a bad person. No, there are negative actions, I would agree with that, but not negative people. How can we say that an entire person is bad based on one action? That person comes home, they have a mother, they have a father, they fear pain and death just as you do. They have moments where they were really kind and loving to their own children. And for some people there are very negative actions, and maybe a lot of negative actions, but still there is also positivity in a person. So we can never say an entire person is bad. Impossible. There's so much to a person, so much light, so much darkness. For some people the darkness is more predominant, and for some people the light is more predominant. And it manifests in actions, in speech, in thought. But the entire person is not a criminal. The entire person, you can nourish the light in someone. And you don't do that by putting them in jail. You don't nourish the light of a being by putting it into darkness. So we got that quite wrong, I think. So jail doesn't cure people. It doesn't help them to lead constructive lives. Self-reflection does. An environment that encourages self-reflection does. An environment where kindness and so forth are valued above all else. It shapes a person. And since the world is a place where there is both abundantly darkness and light, some people bring their darkness into your life in many ways. So it is very noble to ask to forgive them. But first we have to forgive ourselves for encouraging our own darkness again and again to be expressed, to hurt ourselves and others through our own presence, like this, through our own pain being expressed in our presence, through our presence. And I would put all the emphasis on that. I have spent a lot of time trying to forgive my mom. We had quite a difficult past together. And so I did very often think that, now I forgave her already, I would send her light in my mind. I would just imagine that I send her light, healing light of forgiveness. And I would send her good thoughts and, and kind of cut off the past and say, so now we leave the past behind and we start new and we have all this kind of stuff. And I did that, but it didn't really work. It was almost like there is all this kind of negativity inside of me, all the darkness that is unaddressed. And instead of addressing the darkness, I just paint it nice with nice light and, make it nice, look nicely, I'm trying to make my darkness look nicely. And so it doesn't work. The darkness is still there, it just looks kind of nice. But it doesn't feel nice. It smells. And so what led to real forgiveness was actually talking with my mom when she was on her deathbed. That was a very honest way of talking. That is a beautiful kind of blessing that you get from contemplating death. You get that kind of honesty, that urgency. You want to get things off your chest, You have no time to waste for pretense. And so talking with the person who I felt was the cause of a lot of my pain, and hearing their painful story actually helped me to understand her. And it was that understanding that enabled me to go, whoa, but I never knew that she had so much hardship to endure. I never knew. She always was my mom, and she kind of put on her face, her mom face, and she took care of me, but I didn't know what she went through. And she told me. That enabled me to forgive her. It's that kind of understanding. To see, what is the other person, what did they go through in life? And so you understand why they are that way, why they do what they do. Because there's so much pain in people's life that they keep hidden mostly for themselves. But it comes out in their actions, erratic actions, spontaneous actions, accidental actions, whatever kind of actions that we condemn, that we don't like. But if you look at what that person went through by themselves and what is shaping a being to be like that, the pain that is involved to create such a person, if you see that clearly, it helps heaps to forgive. Because nobody actually goes around, or let's say hardly anybody actually goes around in life thinking today I'm going to make someone else's day miserable. But we all walk around trying to make our own day better. And while we do that, we often make other people's day miserable. It just happens to be that way. Well, and seeing all these kind of aspects, the ways we create pain for ourselves and the unnecessary, how unnecessary it is, then we are able to forgive ourselves for doing that, and we're able to also forgive others gradually. So you want to train to forgive your friends for doing something to you that you found a little bit unpleasant. That's easy. You can forgive them easily because you like them. Then you train to forgive people who you don't know. They kind of looked at you the wrong way. Forgive them. They might have a bad day. Basically, are expressing their pain towards you. That's what beings do. And then finally, you forgive the bad guys, your enemies, people that you really dislike, that give you a hard time, that you want to be distant from, until to the point where you can actually go and listen to their story with an open heart and understand deeply. And so you can relate. It's this ability to relate is also forgiveness. You can, as a human being, relate to another human being. Seeing that we both carry pain and we both act erratically if there is no mindfulness. Let me get to know who you really are. Beyond the actions, beyond the past. Discovering the light in someone else depends on discovering your own. Okay, so that's all that comes to mind for today.